Andrew Painter threw his first hitless outing. We've got Juan Soto updates on where he wants to play. Plus, we've got to give our final grades of the 2024 season with Dave Dombrowski. And, of course, continue to look around the rumor mill. All that's coming up today on PHLY Phillies podcast. No hits for Andrew Painter in his first ever hitless outing in the Arizona Fall League. We also have Juan Soto updates in day 6 of our offseason Juan Soto sweepstakes. Plus, we've got lots to get into after we finish up our grades looking around the league. Welcome to PHLY Phillies podcast. We've got Tyler Zuley back in person, new dad Zuley. We've got birthday boy, it's still your birthday week, Jamie Lynch. And myself, Renee Washington, still no voice Washington, but it's coming back.
Well, Paige,
happy Wednesday.
Paige, my 3-year-old, told me the other day, she said, Dad, it's not your birthday anymore. Oh. She said, my birthday was all week. And I was like, oh, well.
Oh.
Okay, I get it. You're a kid.
She got to celebrate all week, but you don't.
But I don't.
Oh, you got to teach her young. Like everybody's,
tough
technically it's your birthday
there.
Month. If we're going to keep it a buck, but birthday week at the very least.
Nah, Dad, no.
Oh, so dads don't get birthday weeks.
Just 24 hours.
Hope you guys are great on this Wednesday. Listen, lots to talk about on the baseball scene because even though it's the off season, things are continuing to heat up. And things are definitely heating up with some razzle-dazzle in the Arizona Fall League from our very own Andrew Painter. He's been a maestro on the mound. Andrew Painter had another phenomenal, I'm going to figure out a good Painter thing because Maestro is more music, but it's fine.
I was going to critique your
I know, but like, I don't know.
But I'll just let that breathe.
Use Rembrandts, right? That's what you get Rembrandts, right?
Yeah. Van Gogh,
Andrew
Picasso.
Picasso. We're going to call him Picasso.
Painter.
Andy Picasso threw 3 innings in the Arizona Fall League and had 1 walk, 2 Ks, and 0 hits on the day in his 39-pitch outing. His command, the fastball, was all there. He did also mention, he's not where he wants to be with it, but it's all part of it. You know, he feels like he had to make up for things. He relied on the curveball a little bit to do that. And he said, at the end of the day, I got it done. And yes, he did. He had the low 80s curve on 2 of his strikeouts. Did a good job going up against some good prospects that he was able to face. And for one of the Phillies' top prospects, showed us that he's continuing to get back from that Tommy John surgery. Impressive. And one of the bright spots we have right now of the offseason of something encouraging to look forward to for the future. And we've actually got video of Andrew Painter doing his thing on the mound, showcasing all the great ability that is the fastball, the curveball, the command, and the hitless performance. Tyler, hit it. Beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, he's got like an 86 to 88 mile an hour slider, and then he can, have a floor fall out under his 80 to 82 mile an hour curveball. You pair that with gas in the 98 to 100 mile an hour range, and he's just throwing an arsenal at you. And Tyler's talked about this too before, and every time I watch a clip of him, I'm reminded, like, he's 6'6".
6'6",
and he's
still very young.
He's a big dude out there, and to have that 20 mile an hour difference between fastball and a curveball that just drops on you like that is phenomenal. And look, the Arizona Fall League is, it's legit ball. There's top prospects. There's quad A type players. There's guys teams, believing in some top prospects in baseball. So this is a really good litmus test, especially for this time of the year. That brings them now to 13 innings pitched in the Arizona Fall League in 5 games, 8 hits, 3 earned runs, only 2 walks, which might be the most exciting thing about that. 12 strikeouts, a 2.08 ERA with a .875 whip so far. And most encouraging, last night they stretched him out to 39 pitches. So, I don't think he has many left. I think Dave said he was going to pitch, between 20 and 25 innings? Something like that. So he doesn't have a ton left, probably 2 more starts. It's hard not to get irrationally excited because there's, offensive prospects in baseball are fun and exciting, but there's more of like unknown. Like sometimes great players come from somewhere you didn't expect, and sometimes big name players flame out offensively. With a pitching prospect that's great from the jump, they're usually great throughout. I feel like Andrew Painter is, as close to a sure thing we've had as a Phillies prospect since, he's better than Cole Hamels. Nola was a college pitcher, so it's almost a bit different.
Yeah.
I mean, he's up there as one of the most exciting prospects we've frankly seen in a long time. Because like Jimmy and Chase, while they were higher picks, like Ryan Howard came out of nowhere. You know what I mean? So there wasn't that like build
like
up.
the actual anticipation.
Yeah, Victorino and Worth and those guys were Rule 5, kind of off the scrap heap pieces. I don't know. Like even Spencer Howard, like I never really bought in to the hype. Andrew Painter seems like a can't miss, just get nuts about him prospect. And it's going to be a lot of fun this year. He's kind of given me some rays of sunshine here, Renee, in an otherwise depressing kind of Phillies world right now. So thank you, Andrew Painter.
Well, also, Dave Dombrowski had great things to say about Andrew Painter as well, saying how Andrew Painter is, coming up right behind the other pitchers in the rotation, is a tremendous talent. He's going to pitch for the Phillies sometime this year. And everything he's showing you, to your point, Jamie, is giving us all the expectations that Andrew Painter should be ready in 2025. It's just a matter of when in 2025, because you look at the innings that he's pitched so far, 13 total innings. He's had 5 starts, 12 strikeouts, and he's also been able to hit as high as 99 on the radar gun. And, of course, he's shown all 4 pitches as his arsenal. It's the curve, the slider, his new changeup that he's also been showing as well. So Andrew Painter is expanding his repertoire. He's also continuing to be steady and consistent. And, as you mentioned with prospects, you never really know what you're going to get. So it's nice to see
this kid
the
feels like you know what you're going to get.
And he's going up against some good batters in that. He's not playing, I don't even know what to compare it to, but he's going up against others, top prospects. He's consistent with the numbers. He's consistent with the pitches that you're seeing. And so it's very much one of the little things we have to be encouraged about this offseason in terms of what the future holds, because he is still so incredibly young. And also, as you mentioned, with the height, there's a lot of potential. There's a lot there that we probably still haven't even seen the best of from him. And while we're talking about great pitching, I feel like it's also a great opportunity to say happy birthday to Caleb Cotham. Today is his birthday.
Yes, one of the few Phillies, anyone's that didn't get critiqued this year much. One of the few A grades we gave out across the board.
I didn't give him an A.
Well,
I
your
gave him a
Professor
B, though.
Ice Queen.
But a B for me is like an A. It would have been an A without the
So what's an A
downfall.
plus for you? Non-existent?
Zach got an A. That was the highest grade, so correct. Yes, an A plus doesn't exist. Everybody lost points, and we're going to get into our final grades later. We're not there yet, Jamie, but I do feel like, for Caleb Cotham and the pitching staff, for the Phillies overall, there's a lot to be optimistic around when you look at, you still haven't even had a chance to, when you get a guy full season in the majors, a guy full season healthy, where you can now continue to refine his pitching game, it's only going to allow him to take those next major steps, which is very exciting. I know in the chat you guys are excited as well. Of course, you're naturally talking about bullpen arms, though, because Devin
we got
Williams.
into this discussion again on Discord last night because I shared the and that's our Discord channel here at PHLY. If you become a diehard, you can get an invite to it, yada, yada, yada. We have a lot of discussions in there. It's a good, safe space sounding board. And I shared the link of his start last night. And I was like, hey, if anybody wants a distraction tonight, Andrew Painter's going at 8:30. Here's the link. And the conversation came up again like, okay, so I forget who it was. Somebody said, I wouldn't mind just seeing him in the bullpen all year. Oh. And I said, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
If you can kind of preserve innings and he succeeds well as, like a 6th inning guy, a 2 inning guy, and then you can convert him to a starter come playoff time.
That's not a bad
you have my
plan.
attention. Somebody else then said, that feels too much like a Spencer Howard plan. I want to make him a starter, keep him a starter, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, well, Spencer Howard needed peanut butter sandwiches running to first base. I'm not sure if he's deserving of any comparisons. But it does, that's going to be the question of the offseason is how do they handle him?
Yeah.
Look, a lot of guys, and you've seen it just recently with Jordan Hicks, Ronaldo Lopez. Who's the other one I'm thinking of that came? Oh, Michael King. Guys that have transitioned from bullpen back to starter, and this is not an unheard of thing in baseball.
Seth Lugo did it too a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Actually 2 years ago, and this year was a full-time starter.
The guy that's winning the Cy Young this year, Chris Sale, was originally in a bullpen. Yeah. Johan Santana was originally in a bullpen. Adam Wainwright was originally in a bullpen. Yeah. So I just bring that up to say, like, it's not off the table. If you want to put him in the bullpen for the year and manage his innings that way until you get to meaningful October baseball, and you're still, like, let's say you get to October and he's only pitched, I think a heavy workload for relief pitchers for the Phillies this year was like Hoffman, Strahm, Alvarado, and they were like 66 to 70 innings.
Yeah.
So if you have him in the bullpen all year, and let's say he gets to 60, 65, then you still have wiggle room come playoffs. I'm coming around more to that side of it than trying to preserve them and back up his spring training and doing it that way.
I think
I'd rather just see him, basically.
I was gonna say,
my impatience is like
if the options are he waits until the All-Star break to be a starter versus he starts from day one as a bullpen arm. Now, as a bullpen arm, you would also have a chance to see him in major league innings, in big moments, to see how he handles that. Now, obviously, as we know, being a starter versus being a bullpen arm, high leverage versus low leverage, like all those things are extremely different in how you're coming into the game. But it still would allow us to, as you said, Jamie, to see him versus having to wait around and wait until, All-Star game in July and wondering what he's going to look like. And then also, I feel like for him, it might not be a bad idea to just jump all in. Like, waiting and delaying and having him do, some definitely not AAA or anything like that. Like, that's not going to help him.
Yeah, I just kind of feel like he's good enough. Like, why waste the innings? Like,
yes.
Like, just get him up here, put him in the bullpen.
He's probably eager to get going. Like,
I don't think
give
you're
him
going to screw up his starter mentality.
No.
Just
listen.
use him.
We saw Kobe Allard, Tyler Phillips. We've seen guys that they've moved in and out of starting roles and bullpen roles that were much less. No offense to them. They're not Andrew Painter. They're not as talented. So if they can do it and you have the confidence of moving them, why not stretch him out as a bullpen arm, allow him to get some major league innings versus going to do a minor league, any sort of minor league opportunities are not going to be the same. And for him, just let him get going with the team from day one, get the opportunity to now be around Zach and Aaron and Christopher and Ranger and Caleb on a daily basis. Exactly. So I do think there's value there as well.
Share away in the chat what you guys would do.
Let us know your thoughts. And I am interested to hear essentially and see, I should say, what the Phillies do to really roll this out for him, because it's something that's one of the big areas that we're keeping an eye on. And I feel like it's a great opportunity now as we're talking about the plan for Andrew Painter to get started on our grades. But first, let's take care of our business here. Oh, hello, crack in the voice. Let me tell you guys all about our friends over at Game Time, because every time it's Game Time, you can rely on them. And I'm so appreciative. I've been able to use the Game Time app myself when buying tickets for anything. I've been telling people all about the Game Time app because they have a number of different benefits, including the fact that you get Game Time picks, which allows you to look for the best seats in terms of value, price, the seat location, and really just minimizes, because it's so overwhelming when you're looking through the hundreds of options of tickets that you can purchase. Instead, Game Time Picks gives you the best current available seats for the value and the price. They also provide you with the opportunity with the Game Time app to see your seats. So now you have a nice view of where you're going to be located at that game. But it's not just for games, guys. It's concerts, it's comedy shows, it's anything theater, musicals, any sort of music, entertainment, sporting events that you're looking to attend. The Game Time app has tickets for you. So with the Game Time app, you get the Game Time picks. You get the view of your seats. You also get the lowest price guaranteed. They've got super deals and curated deals, specifically it easier for you. The closer you get to the start of that event, prices actually go down, not up. So if you want to get those last minute tickets, you're going to get those last minute ticket deals, not the ones that steal the money out of your pocket. And so with the Game Time app, all these different benefits, in addition to their event cancellation protection, job loss protection, to make sure that you are always feeling comfortable and excited to get rid of the stress of buying tickets. So they also, the final main thing that I enjoy, all-in pricing. I cannot stand when I'm buying tickets for anything and you get to check out and all of a sudden it's $50 more expensive or the price has jumped up because they're now adding in taxes and additional fees. There are no surprises at checkout with their all-in pricing. You're going to see what you're going to pay upfront. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, create that account. Use code PHLY, get $20 off, and download the Game Time app today because what time is it, guys? Game time. And I can go deeper. I can't go higher right now.
Yeah,
so.
your voice is...
Game time. I kind of like it still. I like this phase.
There's
this is a
always
much better
cigarettes
phase. No, this phase is much better than what it was yesterday.
And let me tell you about our friends over at EmpireToday.com. You've been hearing the Empire jingle for decades, and that's because they've stood the test of time. And Empire is great because they're very much in line with my 2024 way of shopping, which is never go to stores. Have people come to you if the option is available. Who wants to go to a big box store where you're just going to be beaten over the head with thousands of options, not get the trusted opinion of the professionals you trust and all of that? Well, Empire Today said, we don't need to do this anymore. We don't need to bring you to some warehouse. We'll come right to your front door. And, you know, we have this technology, and their virtual floor designer will show you what the floors look like in your new home, right there with your furniture and your paint colors, all of it. You get it right there at your house, and they're going to listen to you, hear what you're looking for and what you want, and they're going to offer you the stuff that they would put in their own homes. It's that simple. Don't overthink it. Listen to the pros. They know what they want to give you. They will listen to you. They will show you what it looks like, and you can get a $350 off discount right now. So schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive a $350 discount when they use the promo code PHLY. Restrictions apply. See EmpireToday.com/PHLY for details.
All right. Well, it's only right that we finish out our grading for the 2024 season here on PHLY Phillies podcast, as we've been bringing you grades for every individual player. We've been going to the coaching staff, and nobody's above it, front office included. So let's get into our final grade. Before we talk Juan Soto in day 6 of our Juan Soto sweepstakes, before we talk about all the other rumors of who's looking to make trades, free agency, different things going on around the league, let's just first finish up our final grade of the 2024 season with Dave Dombrowski. This is an interesting one.
Yeah, because the offseason moves from last year count.
They do. They do.
You know, Rodolfo Castro's big season, he gets credit for. Rodolfo Castro, he didn't have an impact.
So Dave Dombrowski is one that I actually hold with a very, 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 very high expectation because it is your job quite literally to bring in roster moves and bring in players that are going to help win a World Series. This team had the core. They had the ability. They had the veterans. They had the experience. I mean, you talk about a group that went to the World Series in 2022, the NLCS in 2023. So you can't say they're not ready for the playoffs. No, they've been ready for the playoffs. They've already had, they've had a chance to dip their toes in, and they dipped more than just a toe in with that run to the World Series. So when you look at Dave Dombrowski's inability to bring in pieces that can help them take that next step, the trade deadline jumps out at you. But of course, it wasn't just that. It was last offseason. It was a trade deadline. So in terms of the trade deadline acquisitions, you had a Carlos Estevez, who we like as a person. We like Mr. Kamehameha. He was best of the options that we brought in. Tanner Banks was just there, a blender, didn't do much, didn't kill you, didn't help you. And then, of course, we know Austin Hayes, although he can't control a kidney infection, in terms of his at-bats and production, never panned out to be a guy that you had hope for. You know, he was an everyday, then he was a platoon, then he was, I don't really know, question mark. So I know for me, I'm actually going to give, and I also want to keep in mind the fact that Dave Dombrowski has not been in charge of one or two, but multiple teams that have made it to the World Series. He's been around for the 97 Marlins, the 06 and 2012 Tigers, 2018 Red Sox, of course, 2022 Phillies. He knows what it takes to get to that point, yet you did not help the Phillies get to that point. And when you look at the other moves that were made, the Tommy Edmonds, the Lane Thomases, the Tanner Scotts that teams made in the trade deadline period that actually helped them come postseason time, for me, it was a C-, and I actually could be talking to a D+.
Yeah. So, part of this was looking at the offseason that they had, and the trade deadline is obviously the big cherry on top. I'm going C+. I don't think you're very off with the C-. I could be talked into lower. Austin Hayes, you can excuse make all you like. That was a failure of a trade deadline move. Of course, you can't predict injuries and kidney infections.
No.
But I don't know. We have to grade you based on the moves that happened. Austin Hayes was a disaster. Carlos Estevez, he was okay. Did he really improve the Phillies that much? Maybe he allowed guys to slot into more natural spots in the bullpen, but I don't know, very uninspiring. The Aaron Nola extension in the offseason, that was fine. That gives you a nice little plus from maybe up to a C+ from a C-. But overall, just weak. And I think the desperation was there. Maybe a C- is actually more fair because of the age of this core. You probably should have had a little bit more a sense of push all in and go for it. So, I'll go C-. Screw it. C+.
Wow.
Seems a little too fluffy. I'll go C-. Tyler, what do you got?
Yeah, it was a pretty average season, I think, for a team that had more than average aspirations. We talked about it at the trade deadline, and we had some pretty varying grades at the end of the trade deadline, and some were really positive and some were really negative. And I thought that the trade deadline was super, super average for Dave Dombrowski. Yeah. And the reason I say that was because I think, whoa, hold on. There we go.
There
it is. Hey, I think that the reason was because I thought the Estevez move was a good one. They needed a back end of the bullpen type of guy, somebody with closer experience. I didn't know necessarily if he was going to be the de facto closer or not, and they tended to use him in that role.
Kind of just gave him the job, right?
And that's fine either way. I thought it was a good move. You needed another arm in the bullpen. I think all good teams need another arm in the bullpen, but you got a pretty high leverage one. And I thought, you gave up two starters who may, if both pan out, are going to be, decent middle to back end of the rotation type of guys. Aldigari made his debut with the Angels, and that's probably a product of the Angels being desperate more than Aldigari being ready for the major leagues. But I thought it was a good move for the Phillies to go get a guy that they really could rely upon. He was solid. I don't think he was sensational. I don't think he was awful. I think he was decent in his time with the Phillies, and the postseason Grand Slam hurts the ERA quite a bit, obviously. But the rest of the moves were either looking ahead, which could prove to be a decent move with a Moises Chase type of player. Maybe Seth Johnson gives you something in 25. But bringing in Austin Hayes doesn't really excite anybody. It didn't excite me at the time, and I don't think it excited anybody then because the book was out on Austin Hayes where he was basically the inverse split Brandon Marsh, where he can hit left-handed pitching, but he can't hit right-handed pitching. Yeah. And if Marsh was the guy that could hit right-handed pitching but couldn't hit left-handed pitching, you basically have two guys to play one position, and it's the two quarterback theory. When you have two, you really have none. So you didn't have a starting left fielder last year. It was an uninspiring trade deadline for Dombrowski. A great job of locking up Christopher Sanchez for a very, very team-friendly deal.
Really good move.
And their team is in a spot right now where they don't really have to worry about too many free agents leaving. It's Hoffman and Estevez are really your only two that you're talking about. Everybody else is either under team control or has a big contract extension already. It was an average year for Dave Dombrowski where the aspirations were higher. I give him a C, and we'll see what happens this offseason. This is a very, very important offseason for Dave Dombrowski in the front office.
This is probably going to paint the whole picture of him, like this offseason and how creative they get and how aggressive they get. And is he able to, get John Middleton to write another check? Like, this is going to probably paint the whole picture because that championship window's still open, but it's certainly getting smaller.
No, that's exactly it. I mean, the time is now. The window is closing.
But
And
I think we had the same conversation last year.
we did. We literally did. And here we are a year later
Yeah.
having the same conversations, but it's actually worse. I know Ray in the chat is mentioning how you're going to give Dave a C- as well. They try to get the utility guy with Whit. Let's not forget Whit Merrifield. And of course, we didn't
I
talk
liked
about
Whit
him.
at the time.
No, I thought the move made sense. I did. It just didn't work out.
And that one was just $7.5
They did try to
million.
snag some fringe guys. Yeah, it was a cheap deal anyways. And then MBDBDBF's mentioning how Dombrowski did piss away a year of this title window. That is the hard part, which is also why I was considering a D+ for that reason, because it is your job. Like, Rob Thompson has to manage what he's got. Caleb and Kevin have to work with who they've got. But Dave and John in the front office have to bring in the guys to set this team up. And I know in the chat it was also mentioned, Elephant in the Room, you're saying, in his defense, though we have to admit that prices over the past 2 deadlines have been insane. And also, I know it was mentioned about, Steven Garrison was saying it. He did say the stars had to hit, which is why he made small moves. And we can agree with that. If the stars had shown up consistently, Bryce, Trey, Kyle, JT, Nick, if your top guys had shown up consistently, it's a different conversation. But it is still your job to build this team in a way that you have a plan for all the what ifs, injuries, what happens if you're not getting the offensive production you want? What happens if guys are not hitting? What is the contingency plan? What happens if your outfield is not producing offensively? Who are we going to call? Not the Ghostbusters. So I do feel like for Dave Dombrowski, he had the opportunity. This group had the core. He had the chance to add, and they said it, add around the edges, but your edge pieces were not the Lane Thomas. I know Luis Robert was brought in. I know. I know we've talked about like a Tanner Scott, and obviously you look at like a Tommy Edman. Like, there are names that were out there that were available that the Phillies passed up on. Even back to last offseason, the Teoscar Hernandez is like, we actually talked about guys last offseason that should have been targets. Devin Williams, we brought up, that were names that they should have actively been pursuing, and they didn't bring any of those names in.
Yeah, I said probably about a year ago I would have given Teoscar Hernandez a 1-year, $20 million deal in the blink of an eye. It's hard not to kind of grade Dombrowski on all of it. I know it's just supposed to be this year, but it does feel like it's hard not to be a little bit more negative about it. There is a lot of positive in it, and I think that's why we all kind of level out at like a C. There is a lot of good. I don't want to say it's all bad, but man, it feels like these last 2 years, if you were ever at a window of opportunity to just go, screw it, I'm all in, it was these last 2 years. And we got, let's recount, because trade deadline is what you're going to be graded on the most. Austin Hayes and Carlos Estevez and Rodolfo Castro and Gregory Soto.
Yeah, that's what you have to show for.
And, like, it's just not good enough. Like, I 3 of the 4 teams that were left this year, of the last 4 teams, were all $300 million teams. You're up against other big boys who are going to go for it all the time. Tommy Edman was an NLCS MVP. And,
trade deadline
was
piece.
Anybody kicking down the door for Tommy
Lane
Edman?
Thomas hit a grand slam.
Yeah, like, guys contributed. You see winning teams get contributions from deadline pieces, and we now in the heart of this window just haven't. And that's just not good enough.
The reality is, it's easy for us to say now in the future, looking back in hindsight, it did not play out well. But it's actually their job. Like, that's not an excuse. We're not the ones watching these guys every day. We're not the ones with scouts and all the research and development and coaching staff, resources that provide you with a picture of who these players are. We're not the ones tracking these players. So no, we're not going to know fully how these guys are going to plan out. And obviously nobody knows, but the reality is it is your job to get some of those right. We don't expect all of them to be right. There are going to be times that teams draft a player or trade for a player or pick a player up in free agency. It doesn't pan out well. That should happen once in a while. But for Dave Dombrowski, you look at the Rodolfo Castro, the Austin Hayes, the Tanner Banks, Carlos Estevez, the names that we've talked about. The best one that panned out was Carlos Estevez.
Yeah.
It's not enough.
Undoubtedly.
To say, like, one guy was kind of good enough.
And he was just okay, what was he, 13 earned runs in 23 innings, something like that?
His save streak came to an end. His ERA, not enough. That is your job to get it right. That is your job to have the team around you. And if you're not getting it right, then you need to look in-house and internally of like, what needs to change? How do we change? Because the Dodgers got it right with Tommy Edman. The Dodgers got it right with a lot of guys they picked up. They picked up Teoscar Hernandez. They picked up a lot of guys.
The Dodgers, Yankees, and Mets are not going to stop spending.
No.
And if that's who you're up against,
you got to be willing to spend.
And I do believe, we read John Middleton's quotes yesterday. I do believe he understands that. But now it's on Dombrowski in the front office and Sam Fold and everyone to execute on that.
Yeah.
You have an owner that's willing to spend, which is the biggest hurdle in this. So now you got to do your job well, and you got to be better at trade deadlines.
Yeah.
You have to be.
Well, this offseason is another test, and let's hope let's hope that for Dave in the front office, they get this one right and don't squander another opportunity to bring in some pieces to help the Phillies be at their best. We've got to talk about the Juan Soto sweepstakes coming up, but first, let's take a quick pause and a quick break to handle some business. Let me tell you guys about our friends over at Shady Rays so that you can make sure to get ready for the season ahead with shades that are quality shades built to last by an independent sunglasses company in Shady Rays. Now, they have been rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people, and their shades have durable frames, which I love. They're sleek, they're durable, but they also give you hundreds of options to choose from. That's right, whatever you're looking for in terms of color, style, the size of the frames, the design of them, they've got options for you. And with Shady Rays, with those hundreds of options that you can choose from, they also know you're not only bound to find a style that matches you and what you're looking for, but they also have the ability to give you the support knowing if you ever want to exchange them, if you want to return them, if you lose them. They actually have some return worry-free guarantees built in to make sure you can shop and make sure you're not feeling the nerves of the what ifs. Because if you do want to go back and you change your mind, Shady Rays has some protections for you in place. Not to mention, they aren't going to break the bank. With Shady Rays, you get great prices, you get great quality shades built to last, and it won't cost you an arm and a leg. It's very expensive these days. Prices are going through the roof, but not with Shady Rays. So you've got all the quality, you've got the style, the flair, the fun for all the outdoor activities you're looking to get into. It's still beautiful outside this fall season. We're out at farms and festivals. We just had Halloween. We've got more great outdoor activities coming up around just watching games and tailgating, whatever it is you're looking to do. You want to make sure you've got some great shades to rock while you're there. So exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. You can head to shadyrays.com, use code PHLY, get 35% off of your Shady Rays, and try them out for yourselves. The shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people.
And let me tell you about where you can get a ring, because if you're a Phillies, Sixers, Flyers, Eagles fan, you're pretty much ringless these days. But you don't have to go ringless with our friends over at Golden Nugget Jewelers, because if you're looking for the engagement ring of your lifetime, there's no better place to go than Golden Nugget Jewelers. And it's not just engagement rings. The holiday season's coming up, and guess what, guys? Women love jewelry. It's just... it's a fact of life. Renee can back me up on this. If you go with jewelry, you rarely ever miss. It's always going to hit home. So this holiday season, whether it's an engagement ring, a watch, a band, a necklace, earrings, whatever it may be, stop into Golden Nugget Jewelers at the corner of 8th and Chestnut in downtown Philly. They've been family owned and operated since the late 80s. And if you're getting engaged, they have an assortment of rings and wedding bands to fit anyone's style. And you can receive a final cleaning and written appraisal with every engagement ring there. And you can find watches, necklaces, bracelets, everything else for the holiday season there as well. And you deserve an expert and the best price in Golden Nugget Jewelers, where Philly gets engaged. Head over to goldennuggetjewelers.com to learn more.
All right. Well, we are here on PHLY Phillies podcast, and we've got some excitement because every single day we've been bringing you guys some updates around the latest with the Juan Soto sweepstakes. And today, guys, it's no different. In fact, we've got some exciting news for you. So it is time to get into our Ace Hardware Temp Check, where you can get started on your next project at acehardwarehomeservices.com for any projects you have going on, because we're going to take a look at how things are heating up in the Phillies race to try, or maybe cooling off, to try to acquire Juan Soto with our Ace Hardware Temp Check, because we've got some updates for you. One of the updates is that the Yankees actually, reports came out that at the GM meetings that have been going on, this actually happened on Tuesday down in San Antonio. Brian Cashman, Yankees exec, did of course confirm that the Yankees are looking to re-sign Juan Soto. That's their team's top priority. We know that. He spoke with Scott Boras allegedly on Monday, and Boras was going to
pay me my money. That was the meeting.
They said Boras was going to get back to him on the type of meeting Juan Soto might want to have with the Yankees this offseason.
It's called a blank check meeting. Slide it across.
Knows, correct. Since he already knows the organization so well, they want to confirm the type of meeting that they want to have. So there is the potential that the Yankees are not traditionally going to meet with Juan Soto. And they're saying, of course, since we know him, we're standing ready to meet with him if he feels necessary to meet with us, as he already understands the landscape of opportunities that now exist for himself. That is what Cashman was saying. So there's a potential he might not officially meet with the Yankees. So what does that mean? Nothing, actually. There are other reports that are claiming that the Yankees and the Mets are, of course, in a bidding war, and the only two teams, executives around the league are believing that they're the only two teams that really are at play for the Soto sweepstakes. That's an AL executive actually came out and said that during the GM meetings, an anonymous one, because they are always anonymous guys, saying that it's the Yankees or the Mets. He knows the Yankees well after spending a year there. And of course, Steve Cohen has enough money to give him whatever he wants if he decides he wants to go there. So word is also that, and this is exciting.
Okay.
We're going to get it. We had to loop it around. Soto does prefer to stay on the East Coast. We've heard some reports that have come out saying that Soto has a preference because of the location and wanting to be closer to his family, closer to home. And so we saw it came out with Mark Faison reported it. That word is Juan Soto prefers to stay on the East Coast, which of course would add an extra level of obstacles for anybody on the West Coast. Dodgers, we're looking at you. So there's some minor things in there.
Dodgers, back off.
Yes, exactly. So this does also mean,
and by the way,
for the
Sasaki,
Phillies,
they apparently
I know. Well, because of Yamamoto and Ohtani. Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. I know, Jamie. God. I know. It's a lot. It's a lot to process.
Damn
here.
you, Magic Johnson. This
So
guy wins everywhere he goes.
No, I know.
Did you see the stat on him the other day? He's been associated with
money.
I think as a player and owner, it's like 15 world titles. Mm-hmm. And the Commanders are turning the corner.
I was going to say, and look what he's doing with the Commanders.
Oh, Magic Johnson. Just go to the Mediterranean and get on a yacht and stop owning teams.
So I know MBDBDBF's got a super chat for us saying that the face of the franchise has a $330 million contract and has asked for an extension. Zero chance they give a guy $600 and pat Bryce on the head. Go play, bud. The reality is
that would be a problem.
Philly is on the East Coast, but the reality is also
Steve Cohen's going to get.
Steve Cohen's going to give way more money than what
I would bet good money right now that he ends up a Met, and that's terrible. But it's the first time you've heard Mark Faison. It's the first time you've heard them say, been named to my knowledge at least. In the Bob Nightingale piece, they claimed they hadn't even talked about him, which is just a bold-faced lie.
Yeah.
You've been talking about Juan Soto for over a year there. Don't give me that. But it is the first time you've heard a reporter actually say the Phillies. John Heyman said there'll be a long shot, like on the outside. This was like they're going to give it a go. I mean, that's cool. I might have shrunk a percentage point since yesterday. I'm down to 6.5%.
I was gonna say, so
I don't think it'll ever get over 10.
Given this is our Ace Hardware temp check, guys. The magic question the magic question of the day, Magic Johnson, is given this news that Juan Soto wants to stay on the East Coast or has a preference to stay on the East Coast, because that preference doesn't mean he's opposed to leaving the East Coast, which is terrifying in itself, but it means he does hope to stay on the East Coast. So Tyler, Jamie, everybody in the chat, temp check. How are we feeling? Are we cooling off? Are we heating up a little bit with this news from Juan Soto and his preference? You said you lost a point.
I probably lost a point. I guess my temp check, I guess it's personal preference, right? Like I hate running hot. So I guess I would, right? Wouldn't you rather run? I'd rather run cold than hot if we're doing like true temp talk.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
We're making this a legitimate temp talk.
Well, yeah. So I guess I got hotter in the temperature world comparison of the two, because that's worse for me. Because then I start sweating and then I get real grumpy and irritable.
I actually was sweating because all this medicine I took has me like.
Yeah,
so
it's
I don't
cold
like.
in
I don't
here
like
and
being
it's hot
sweaty
back here.
Yeah.
So it's getting hotter for me. It's nice to hear that they're going to take a crack at it. It's just I don't think their wallets will go deep enough for Steve Cohen.
Yeah.
The man has an $8.5 million shark in his like vestibule, whatever you call it.
For most people, it's a foyer, but
he
for
has the
him,
most
it's
expensive
not. It's
private
a hall.
art collection in the world. You know what's the great piece of art? A 25-year-old Juan Soto.
I know.
Hold on, it's a what? I have a door and then stairs. I don't have any. What are you
He's
talking
got
about?
like a vestibule. It's like
You
a
guys
whole
don't
room.
have like a
And there's a
fashion
house
freeway.
inside his foyer.
Yeah.
There's an $8.5
correct.
million embalmed shark in it.
Yeah.
That
You
we
think
still don't
that's going to
understand
stop?
why it's floating. It's dead, but it's
Well, you
just
have to
floating
preserve it so it doesn't rot,
weird.
and then it would stink.
very
Uber
weird.
rich people are weird.
They just spend
That's
a lot
why.
of money on things.
They
So,
have
Tyler,
money to spend.
Given that, are you heating up or are you cooling off?
I don't know what the premise is anymore because Jamie's just like, I don't know, just changing temperature. So I will say this.
Jamie made this thermostat talk.
In terms of if my percentage rises, I'm heating up, and if my percentage dips, it's cooling
Yeah,
down.
that's technically what that means, guys.
I'm cooling down, and I was at like 0.6% chance that this was going to happen. I think it's probably about a 0.2% chance that this happens.
Oh.
It's not going to.
Yeah.
Steve Cohen's art collection is valued at over $1 billion.
It's disgusting.
Do you think Juan Soto
Is that-
requesting another $75 million is going to make that man blink an eye? No.
Wait, is this in his house?
Yeah, his personal art collection is valued at
So
$1
people in
billion.
the chat don't fully know what you're talking about, and I want to give them a chance to explain that. I do want to say to the point even MBDBDBF said, and thanks for the super chat. We appreciate you. I also agree the Phillies are not going to spend the money that they can. Like, they tried on Yamamoto, and that was a much lower sweepstakes. There's no way they're going to have the funds to be able to pay for Juan Soto or even to be close enough to compete with the Mets for Juan Soto and
Tyler,
even the
I'm
Yankees.
throwing in the picture of the
I
shark.
actually never felt like he was going to come here. To be honest, like, I've been at a 0%. Do I like the idea? Sure, like, it sounds good. It would be fantastic.
It's nice to hear your name, you know?
Yeah, it's nice.
It's nice to be thought of.
I actually don't want them to be included. Stop faking us out. We
Well,
know the Phillies aren't legitimately
Spin Zone.
financially included.
If you're going to lose him to Cohen anyway, you might as well be used to raise his price.
That's a good point, actually.
So,
I
like,
like that. I like that.
Screw Steve Cohen and
Yeah.
his billions of dollars, at least.
Oh,
So
no.
this is
That's
the
disgusting.
art in Steve Cohen's, like, basically,
Is
like,
it
vestibule.
hanging, though?
No, it's like in that huge. When you walk into his house, it's like in the lobby. You know, they don't have like normal
Wait, can
people.
you
houses.
show it again?
And
Why
I
does
think
its
he
mouth have
paid
to be
$8.5 or
open?
$9 million for it. It's a great white shark
Ew.
embalmed in whatever, and it's right there in his house. So my point is, if he's spending $8.5 or $9 million on that, and he has $1 billion art collection,
us normal people go, hey, I think I should buy a painting for my house. I don't know. This one's $50. I
what
don't
was
know
that?
if I can
That
pay for
big
it.
mouth Billy Bass or whatever.
Oh my
The
gosh,
thing
I used to
that like
sing.
flapped off the wall.
That
Yeah.
singing fish that used to sing back in the day.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, why was that
That's
such a
Steve
popular
Cohen's
thing?
big mouth Billy Bass.
People were going out of their mind buying that singing fish on the wall. Yeah, I don't think that the Phillies are going to be able to afford to keep up with a guy that has a shark floating around his front hall.
Yeah. So
So
he is
the only thing that would make it even palatable is if at all times he played the Jaws theme around it.
That would
Like,
be
when
cool.
you walk by, it should trigger the song.
I think so.
Like, it should be a motion activated Jaws. Yeah, or something.
Listen, Steve, if you're looking for ways to spend your money, let me help you out. Let me hold a couple $1 million. I'll show you how to spend the money properly.
I mean, I will gladly, rather than buying a shark, if you want to donate to the Renee Washington Fund, I would gladly take some extra coins. I don't know why anybody would want that in their house, right? It's very confusing, and it's a little bit alarming.
It's just you have so much money you don't know how to spend it.
Yeah, you're like bored.
And you don't think Juan Soto's more exciting to him than an embalmed shark?
Yeah.
So,
He's
if
going to the
you're like
Mets.
me and you assume he's just going to become a Met, be used by Scott Boras.
At least
you know,
rise the
the
price.
Phillies can always be that mystery team that have upped the offer to $600 million. Make Steve Cohen spend $700 million. You know, make him get nuts because he'll do it. And by the way, his art collection, for those that don't know, it's valued at $1 billion. Him and his wife, it's their passion. Includes
their
art.
passion.
Includes artwork from renowned figures such as Pablo Picasso, Jasper Johns, Jackson Pollock, Andy Warhol, and I don't even know this one, Peter Doig. So yeah,
See, my passion includes paying my bills.
yeah, complaining about the grocery store. So yeah, Steve Cohen, he's probably gonna get him.
Well, I bet he'd appreciate at least my art my attempts at Andrew Painter art-related jokes because he's an artiste himself. Clearly, I mean, I don't know.
So great, but
nice. Wow, you still after all this time? I think we can do it.
His super chat, that is a legit point. Like Bryce Harper would be happy, but at the same time, he's going back to the negotiating table immediately because that almost does become an untenable situation where it's just like he's making how much, and I'm only making 3. That's what you think of me?
Yeah.
So like
I'd be like half.
That is something, because human nature is, it's real. And Bryce Harper is not going to be pleased. He'll be pleased that the baseball team is trying to win and spend. Yeah. But there's a selfishness that kicks in too. Like, hey, he's not that much better.
Well, unlike the Dodgers, who pay everybody on their team a lot of money and an incredibly high amount, the Phillies do not pay guys as high. So to your points, yes, not only are the Phillies notoriously cheaper than a team like the Mets or the Yankees or Dodgers in terms of spending, but you don't have contracts that big. So therefore, you're going to have guys. Definitely Bryce Harper. Trey Turner, you don't have a leg to stand on, but he probably would too. Kyle, these guys are like, wait a minute. Zach, I don't think Zach has the personality type to even care, but it does make you wonder, like, wait, when you find out what your coworkers are making compared to what you're making, and it's like, I thought I was making good money, but I just found out my coworkers making, hundreds of $1,000s more than me. Millions in this case, that's a problem. So, yeah, I do think that the Phillies are going to have their name in it as long as they can, but it's not going anywhere, guys. He's not coming here, I should say. He's going to stay in New York. It's just what it is.
Yeah, but it's nice to be part of it.
To your point now, when you spin cycle it and think about at least the Phillies are helping to raise the price.
Yeah. Used.
I think
let Scott Boras use
pretend that you're giving, pretend you're going to offer him $600 million, do whatever it takes. All right. But outside of Juan Soto, there are other names that are really exciting to keep an eye on because I think, to me, the Phillies, rather than truly going after Juan Soto, which would be a great pipeline dream, which we would love, it'd be even more spectacular if you can get some of these other names, because with the GM meetings, we are getting some updates down in Texas. We're getting some things that are going on in terms of rumors and names and different ones, and there's a few. One thing that I do want to mention is in terms of the reports regarding Hoffman and Estevez, their name has been brought up. They are two of the more flashy relievers on the market. So although the Phillies, which actually makes it more difficult for the Phillies to keep them, there are some other teams that have their eye on Jeff Hoffman and have their eye on Carlos Estevez. And I know our cousin network over at CHGO, not the White Sox, the Cubs, are one of them. Yeah,
one of the rumors coming out of the GM meetings last night was that the Cubs could have upwards, depending on their arbitration moves and all of that, of $60 million to spend. And they want some top-of-the-rotation help and some back-of-the-bullpen help. And two names that were kind of lightly rumored, it was Estevez, Hoffman, and Tanner Scott were the three that were mentioned in the MLB trade rumors, kind of rumor mill that's going on. So CHGO might be in the market for one or two of those guys. I do think, Tyler and I were talking this morning, it does feel like the possibility of neither of them returning is real. And if that's the case, I do think they pivot to a Tanner Scott or somebody like that. Maybe get involved with the Devin Williams trade. We'll see. But I do think the possibility of Estevez and Hoffman both not being back is like 50-50.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably 50% that one of the two is back. I would guess Hoffman more than Estevez, but TBD there.
Yeah. No, I've actually been kind of on the mindset with everything that anything could happen, and I don't want to get too connected to anyone because there's no guarantee on who will be back. There could be a lot of players that are gone.
Good morning, Dan. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, hello, Dan. Nice to see you. There are some teams that are squashing any trade rumors. So teams like the Blue Jays, Toronto has made it clear they're not rebuilding after this year's last place finish. But not only they have no interest in rebuilding, but they also have made it clear that they're only going to be dealing rentals or role players. So a Bo Bichette trade is off the market for anybody that was, curious. Also, the team like the A's, who have made it very evident that they are looking to make some trades. They have actually taken a Brent Rooker off of that table because he's been a name that's been kind of tossed around as an option as well in that trade period as a team that is looking to do some rebuilding. But Mason Miller and some other names are still out there possibly for the A's.
He's going to cost you.
I know. But someone to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think I'd be shocked if they went after him.
There's
Not because of the caliber of player. I feel like what they'd have to give up would just be too rich.
Yeah.
So it'd be cool, but yeah, I think it's too much.
So you feel more comfortable with going after Devin Williams or Tanner Scott?
I think Devin Williams would cost you less because there's a contract coming with it, the age difference.
Yeah.
Mason Miller's been hurt a bunch in his career, so there is that risk with it. But I think if they had their choice of like all in for Mason Miller, pretty in for Devin Williams, or throw money at Tanner Scott, I think they would choose the throw money at option. Yeah.
Just make it rain somewhere. I don't care where. Spend money on someone. Also, we did hear the breaking news, which we knew was an issue, but we didn't know exactly what was going on, as we saw Shohei Ohtani go down in the World Series with an awkward slide. They tried to tell us that he's just very flexible and can move his arms funny, so he's fine.
Yeah.
Nope, he's not fine, actually. He had to actually have an arthroscopic shoulder surgery. He is expected to be back in time for spring training. And that
Torn labrum.
That left shoulder dislocated. They had to repair that labrum tear. That's not great. I mean, it happened in Game 2 of the World Series, and we all knew something was wrong. But
that did not look normal.
It did not look normal.
And they were like, no, he just has freak elbows. It was fine. And I was like, no, that man was playing in a lot of pain.
Yeah. Now, it is not his throwing arm, of course, but it does add something extra to keep an eye on in terms of Shohei Ohtani's return back to pitching and just in general. So we'll see. To be determined on that one. Some exciting news, though, I guess you can call it, as Cody Ash has been named the hitting coach for the Baltimore Orioles. The Orioles seem like they're going to be doing a good amount this offseason as well, like a sneaky team to keep an eye on. I think they're going to be a little bit more open to spending some money and making some major changes. They've got a nice young core. They had a lot of injuries, so keeping an eye on Baltimore. But they parted ways with their former hitting coach, Ryan Fuller, and Matt Borg-Schulte at the end of the season. And then they have now brought in good old Cody, who we know Cody had spent some time, of course, with the Phillies, played with the Phils back in 2016, 2017, and he's now getting a job.
Yeah, he was here during the absolute darkest 9 years of my adult life in Phillies baseball. If you had told me back then that Cody Ashe would be a hitting coach one day, I'd be like, but you don't have to be,
2013
per se,
and 2016 wasn't that dark, Jamie. Sarcasm.
No, it was pretty dark. Because you
kidding.
realized it was over, and it was just like, oh, there's no path out of this. Oh, this is going to suck. But you don't have to be a great hitter to be a great hitting coach.
No, and sometimes good players are bad coaches, and I won't say
and great
bad
players can't coach. Like Larry Bird and Michael Jordan always said they had a difficult time coaching because what came natural to them was hard to get across to players. So maybe the inverse here. But Cody Ashe was, considered a great teammate. Everybody loved him in the Phillies organization. Mm-hmm. So congrats to him becoming a hitting coach. Yeah.
Now, there are some other names that we are keeping an eye on in terms of some splashy, especially pitchers.
What do you think an average hitting coach makes in baseball?
Yeah, we should. Yeah, look that up. But the pitching market in general has been an interesting one to keep an eye on, because we know the Braves have already made some comments or some things that show they have interest in a Nathan Eovaldi. Was on my fantasy team, solid season. So they're considering Nathan Eovaldi, but a Blake Snell, Jack Flaherty, Corbin Burns. These are the names that we're definitely keeping an eye on right now, because they are guys that definitely, like a Corbin Burns is expected. I said yesterday it was like $200 million that he's expected to get. Blake Snell's going to be getting a nice pay raise after having, despite the injury at the beginning of the season, he came out and had a great.
What? Sorry, I was just going to say he was like the all-time weirdest offseason last year.
It was bizarre. It was very bizarre.
Like, what
simulated,
happened?
like,
this narrative. This narrative took off that he was an overrated pitcher.
I know.
And it was like on the tracks, and you couldn't stop it, and it like spread to teams. And then he has those first like 3 or 4 starts, and he was kind of trash. People were like, "See, I told you, Blake Snell stunk."
But then he was really
good. And then he came out and was like Cy Young caliber again.
Yes.
It's a very weird thing. I'm really cheering for Blake Snell to go to an American League team and get a lot of money, because like I don't know, I'm like almost like hipster rooting for him.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like when somebody's like been mistreated. Kinda?
No, I do, and I don't
know. You know what I mean?
know.
Like go get that money, Blake. Yeah.
I mean, he's a guy that already has Cy Youngs, has already proven himself both leagues, which is, you don't see. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it was a Scott Boras effect too.
I think that might have been part of it. In
addition to the Boras 4, like I think he kind of got lumped in with the Boras 4, even though he's someone that has proven himself. And he didn't, like this season, even with his injury, he actually came back. Like you said, he pitched way better after his injury.
Yeah.
I actually wasn't surprised when he got injured early in the year.
Maybe he got the Henry Rowan-Gardner ligament.
He might have. Or early in the year, he got injured, which made sense. He missed spring training. He was kind of like thrown and thrust into the start of the season.
When did he sign again? It was like late in March,
It was late.
wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. He missed spring training.
Yeah.
It was literally at the end of spring training,
weird.
and then he jumped right into the season. So it made sense to me he got injured and wasn't ready, and then turned around and was fantastic afterwards. Ray, you're saying, am I crazy for not worrying that much about our pitching and feeling like we need to spend our money on bats? No. I think bullpen arms in general, you always have to look for, especially if you're not going to be able to bring back a Jeff Hoffman and Carlos Estevez. And what we've heard from even Matt Gelb's piece earlier this week is that the priority is to build around, or it sounds like to build around, Jose Alvarado, Orion Kirkering, Matt Strahm, and add 2 bullpen arms. So you're definitely going to add bullpen arms. And then you absolutely need at-bats, some good bats. But the problem comes with that is contractually, logistically, financially, how? And I know there are teams out there that are looking and shopping. Like I know the Astros, who we've talked a lot about because people are keeping an eye on Alex Bregman for a number of people. The Astros have come out and saying like their biggest priority is third base, and there's other teams that are looking for different roles. There are teams that are shopping for some proven talent. The Phillies have some of those guys, but who do you move realistically, and who can you acquire that can help? Like if you're gonna move,
you don't move Bohm just for the sake of moving him.
No.
So like he's one I think like. I'm honestly at the point where I think it's like 50-50. If Bohm's here next year, maybe 40-60. But like, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, like more to my point, not just specifically about Bohm, but every team has their positions that they're looking for. Like the Astros, I use as an example because they did come out and say they don't think they're going to be able to retain Alex Bregman. They're looking to figure out third base as their priority. And they also have had some conversations with Boras and different guys of, just trying to figure out who they're going to be able to acquire.
Boras' State of the Union today.
So, like, teams had their positions that they're looking for. The Phillies have some guys, a Bryson Stott, a Alec Bohm, a Brandon Marsh, Johan Rojas, Nick Castellanos, that other teams would be probably salivating over and love to have on their team. Now, I agree with you. You don't move players just for the sake of moving players.
But if you get something nice and you become flexible financially, I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
I think very wild.
I think one of Marsh or Bohm is gone. Like I think that's kind of a lock.
Oh.
Rangers my wild card.
Oh my gosh, he's another one. He's another one though.
Yeah.
The thing is, if you're going to move these guys, you have to replace them. Don't move a Ranger Suarez and not bring in
playing third baseless team defense next year would be a bold move, Renee. I don't think they should get that outside the box.
I think they did, in fact, take the shift away. You're not allowed to not play there anymore.
2 shortstops. Nobody's playing third.
You don't need a third baseman.
Now, do they stand side by side or one in front of the other?
Well, yeah, you can't be past the bag, right? So, yeah.
Well, if you're playing 2 shortstops, right? Do you one side by side?
One's the traditional position and one's in between the bag and the traditional position.
Mm-hmm.
There's no third base. Let's roll. Let's get weird.
2025, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, it's a whole new world.
But also there was the update that with the GM meetings going on, we're going to get some, as we talked about, it's Scott Boras' season. He's like the Mariah Carey of Christmas. Like this is his time where as soon as you hit the offseason, cue the Boras jingle, it's his time. So apparently, according to Chandler Rome of The Athletic, Scott Boras is supposed to make his annual address to reporters regarding the state of the game and his clients specifically. He's supposed to be addressing Juan Soto, Corbin Burns, Alex Bregman, and Blake Snell.
Yeah. Boras is going to be, as a just baseball fan, non-Philly specific, it's going to be interesting to watch Boras' clients this year. Because it did feel like last year there was a concerted effort by Major League Baseball teams to kind of flip the bird to Scott Boras a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
So it is going to be interesting to see what those guys get. Snell in particular, running it back 2 years in a row like this, and he backed it up. And Soto's going to be a very expensive deal. So it's going to be interesting to watch what happens this offseason with those guys. And Corbin Burns, again, does Steve Cohen just go, here's $225 million, come up here, you know? So the Mets are going to get a lot better is my fear this offseason. That's like the most concerning thing.
It's very concerning. There are a lot of free agents out there that we'll be keeping an eye on, though, in general, outside of like some trade pieces. When you look, and we'll have some time because we've got plenty of time this offseason to deep dive.
We've got all the time in the world, Renee. All the time in the world.
Well, what the hot stove means, it's time for us to actively look around the league beyond the Juan Sotos and Corbin Burns, the other names beyond Blake Snell and Alex Bregman, the Max Fried, the players such as Anthony Santander, Pete Alonso, Willie Adames, Jack Flaherty, Tanner Scott, some that make sense for the Phillies and some to just keep an eye on in general for where they go across Major League Baseball. I know you guys are talking about Garrett Crochet, Shane Bieber, Christian Walker, Teoscar Hernandez is back. So lots of names to keep an eye on. Hot Song Kim. So yes, more to talk about here. Plenty to talk about as we'll continue deep diving through the hot stove and combing through the potential names that actually make sense for the Phillies and for what they need versus just the flashy names. So that'll do it for us here on PHLY Phillies podcast. We appreciate you guys so much for tuning into this edition on Wednesday as we had a chance to talk Juan Soto, Andrew Painter, and much more. For Tyler, Jamie, myself, Renee, so long. See you guys tomorrow, 11 a.m. for more.
We all silly like the mayor.